All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about Terence "Bud" Crawford, who got the big fight today, but getting busted out over some things he had to say about Errol Spence Jr. and what he wants to do after the David Avenetian fight. And that was done by a certain Eddie Hearn. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 147-pound division because it's a big day in boxing. We get to see an exciting fight tonight between Terence Crawford, the 147-pound WBO champion, former undisputed 140-pound champion, former 135-pound champion, fighting David Avenetian, one of the best up-and-coming fighters in all of boxing. But in the lead into that, and see, I'm trying to pub the fight. In the lead into that, though, Eddie Hearn had something to say about what Terence Crawford talked about as far as his plans for the Errol Spence Jr. fight happening next. Now, before I get into that, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a longtime subscriber and supporter to the channel, thank you so much for your continued support. Really, really does mean a lot. This particular video, got to give it to my man, Blacksmith Ross. Thank you so much for your support. Know you're a big Keith Thurman fan, one of the very few truly neutral fans that come to the channel as far as this welterweight stuff goes. But also, thank you so much for your support in the super chats and in the cash apps in the live stream. It really does make a big difference, Blacksmith Ross. So thank you so much for your continued sponsorship of the channel. Also, in the super thanks, where you can support content creators like myself by selecting that heart with the $sign right there in the corner. All right, so Eddie Hearn's out here telling on Terence Crawford. Now, obviously, we knew this, but Eddie Hearn put some numbers to it, and Eddie Hearn is a very good source. Now, if you recall, sometime last week, there was an interview that went up where I do believe it was Brian Custer. No, excuse me. It was the Boxing Voice, Ness of the Boxing Voice, and his co-host on the Boxing Voice had asked Terence Crawford some questions about the Errol Spence Jr. fight after the David Avenetian fight, whether he would be willing to fight in Dallas or Las Vegas. And Terence Crawford answered that he would like to take the fight over to the UK. Now, that immediately had a bunch of people, including the people that asked him the question, looking at him kind of sideways, like, are you what? Are you sure about that? Like, yeah. And Terence said, well, yeah, because it could be 60,000 people watching us there. And, and there's there's less interest in other things that there's less sports competing with boxing over there. So yeah, that'd be a good idea. Of course, we'll make more money over there, right, than you would in the United States. So, I mean, honestly, man, it's real silly. However, for people out there that may have actually, taken what Terence Crawford said seriously, Eddie Hearn gave his 2 cents. Now, why should you listen to Eddie Hearn? Now, I'm not the biggest. If Eddie Hearn is full of it, I will tell you when Eddie Hearn is full of it. At least I believe that he's full of it. And let me assure you, Eddie Hearn also exposed himself in his answer, right? Because he says, look, if Terence Crawford was to take the Errol Spence Jr. fight to the UK, I don't like how he says he wants to take it over there. But anyway, if the fight winds up taking place in the UK, Eddie Hearn said, look, the gate in the UK will be somewhere around $5 million. That makes sense to me, seeing as that is a huge gate in the UK. $5 million is a big gate. You better believe it. Big, big, big gate in the UK, because the biggest gate ever in the UK was that I know of, I do believe that I'm correct though, was the gate for the fight between Anthony Joshua and Vladimir Klitschko, where they did I do believe the fight generated with pay-per-view $50 million, up to $50 million total, but the gate was around $10 million. And I think they did $40 million, something like that, in the pay-per-view, right? Because they sold like 1.5 million pay-per-views, and they sold them for somewhere around, $30, something like that. So at the end of it, it wound up being around $50 million gross for the fight, gross revenue for the fight. But the actually selling out Wembley Stadium, and I think their capacity at the time was somewhere around 80,000 or something like that. They did a $10 million gate. And that was, so to say that Errol and Terence, who are both not from the UK, okay, not from the UK. So there's no national pride on the line with it. They're not heavyweight, an Olympic gold medalist heavyweight champion from that country. Eddie Hearn is probably right about the $5 million. You got to say that sounds pretty sensible to me. Now, when he compared that to what the fight would do in Vegas, he said he believed that the fight in Vegas could do like a $25 million gate. Now, I think that very well that could be very, very correct, because you have the Deontay Wilder fight the fight with Tyson Fury. Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury 2 did a $16 million gate in Vegas. And I think that as far as the gate and people being interested in seeing the fight, that gate would be significantly higher for the Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight. So right there, you have a difference of about $15 million projected by Eddie Hearn that you would lose just by taking it over to the UK. And then if you add to it the pay-per-views on top of that, oh man, it is just a serious way to tank the value of that fight. Now, honestly though, it also does expose Eddie Hearn a little bit, because not just a little bit, a good amount, because Eddie Hearn at a point in time said that the fight with Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford wasn't that big. And he also said that not a lot of people know Terence Crawford. He's not known in the United States. Well, Eddie, how could that possibly be? If it's not that big a fight, how are you going to get a $25 million gate? That's a bigger gate than Canelo usually does. Right? And how are you going to get that big a gate if nobody knows Terence Crawford? Right? So how is it, number one, not a big fight? And number two, how is it going to generate? And then how would it generate that type of gate if nobody knows Terence Crawford? But, anyways, you just got to kind of pick and choose when you listen to Eddie Hearn, because usually listen to him when it's not in his self-interest. Right? But as far as like what the gate would make in the UK, that sounds about right. And Eddie Hearn most definitely is an expert on what to expect in a gate in the UK, especially since you've seen him have very, very few fights in the UK ever since Anthony Joshua kind of popped out of the top of that place. That's why they started going over. They wanted to start taking things over to Saudi Arabia and taking things over to the United States, right? So they can make more money because the ticket sales and the pay-per-view costs are lower out there. Now, also, Terence Crawford did say that he may want to take the fight over to Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. That's a no-go, man, just because you don't want, if you're in the United States, I don't think you want your money frozen trying to get it back into the United States. So when they make sure it ain't got anything to do with any type of alleged mob bosses out there. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.